pandemic made him afraid to fly, has been arrested on charges that he hid in a secured area of the Chicago O'Hare International Airport for 3 months. 36-year-old Aditya Singh is charged with a felony criminal trespass to a restricted area of an airport and misdemeanor theft after he was arrested. Chicago AP reports at a hearing, a judge ruled that the Orange County man could be released if he paid $1,000, but added Singh was prohibited from setting foot in the O'Hare Airport. Assisted public defender Courtney Smallwood said Singh does not have a criminal record. Smallwood also said it's unclear why Singh, who is unemployed, came to Chicago or if he has ties to the area. The Chicago Tribune reported, Assistant State's Attorney Kathleen Haggerty said that Singh was spotted by 2 United Airlines employees who asked him for identification. Singh showed a badge that actually belonged to an operations manager who had reported his badge missing back in October. Before Cook County Judge Susanna Ortiz granted bail for Mr. Singh, she was clearly troubled by someone who could remain in a secure area for so long at an airport without anyone noticing. And that's your news on Rainier Avenue Radio.
You're listening to Rainier Avenue Radio.world. I'm Granville Emerson along with my partner, Ronald Pepe Bean. And we host the show Little Line Sports right here on Rainier Avenue Radio.world, where we talk about football, basketball, local sports, national sports, Seahawks, UW, Seattle U Redhawks, Garfield Bulldogs, all that and more right here on Little Line Sports on Rainier Avenue Radio.world.
Celebrate Black History Month with Rainier Avenue Radio.world. You'll hear interviews, panel discussion, issues that impact your life on a daily basis. Celebrate Black History Month with Rainier Avenue Radio. And oh, did I mention? Every Wednesday night, live musical performances from the historic Columbia City Theater. Rainier Avenue Radio celebrates Black History Month all month long. Interviews, icons, celebrating the history of Black Seattle. Community leaders, community activists. In 1852, Seattle's first Black resident arrived. National viewpoints. In 1943, Harborview Hospital hired its first Black Vibes. Rick Dupree, Tina Marie, and me, Tony B. In 1961, Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. made his first and only Seattle appearance. Did I mention every Wednesday in February, every Wednesday night, in celebration of Black History, live musical performances from the historic Columbia City Theater. I'll say it again. Every Wednesday, live musical performances from the historic Columbia City Theater in celebration of Black History Month. People you know, and some you may not. It's a celebration of Black History Month on Rainier Avenue Radio.world.
Rainier Avenue Radio, your community radio station will provide you with more information. Rainier Avenue Radio.
You're listening to the news on Rainier Avenue Radio.world. I'm Asher.
I'm Russell.
Our co-anchor Kendra is sick, so let's wish her good health. Today is Monday, January 25th. The news on Rainier Avenue Radio is live every Monday from 6 to 6:30 p.m., providing you with current, trustworthy, useful news content focused on super service to the local South Seattle audience. We will not tell you what to think, but instead provide the basics for you to discern and decide for yourself. Tonight, we'll talk about the capital gains tax in Washington state, the ban on trans volunteers in the military, rescued minors in China, and the upcoming Super Bowl. Now on to the local news. At least 2 people were injured when a police officer responding to a report of a street race plowed his car through a crowd of pedestrians. Per Patch.com, the incident happened just before 7 p.m. as about 100 people were blocking an intersection and watching several cars spinning in circles. A witness said a police car arrived, then drove through the crowd after people tried to block the vehicle. A Tacoma police spokesman said that police were notified shortly after 6 p.m. of the street racers. A responding officer used his car's bullhorn to address the crowd. The crowd then began pounding on his windows. One person sustained cuts in the collision and was taken to a hospital. A second person was treated at the hospital and then released.
Alaska Airlines has accepted delivery of its first Boeing 737-9 MAX jetliner. And representatives of Seattle-based airline say the MAX will start carrying passengers on March 1st. Per Como News, Alaska Airlines pilots flew the aircraft on a short flight from Sunday from Boeing Field to Seattle to the Seattle company's hangar at SeaTac International Airport with a small group of Alaska top leadership on board. The first MAX flight is scheduled to enter passenger service on March 1st, with daily round-trip flights between Seattle and San Diego and Seattle and Los Angeles. The Boeing MAX aircraft was cleared to fly late last year after a 19-month grounding that followed 2 deadly crashes of the aircraft. During the grounding, Boeing made significant improvements to the aircraft that are designed to make it easier and safer.
Ned Hastings from Pasco spent about 37 ice-cold minutes in the Columbia River. For Como News, he started and ended his swim at Howard Amon Park in Richland with a kayak accompanying him on the swim. The reason? He said to prepare, he started getting in the water every day to start in the fall, and eventually his body just adjusts. The International Ice Swimming Association introduced the quote-unquote ice mile, which is 1 mile in water of 41 degrees Fahrenheit or less. Hastings said less than 400 people in the world have done the ice mile, and now he is one of them.
The Washington State Parks and Recreation Commission this week expected to decide the fate of a neighbor proposal to use up to 28 state coastal parks to help train special operations SEALs on how to be undetectable. The Navy held a 5-year permit to use 5 state parks that expired in 2020, and the state commission is scheduled to vote Thursday on whether to approve a 5-year permit for expanded access. The SEAL training in state parks is controversial, as these exercises put the elite special operations forces in some of the state's most cherished outdoor places. In representation at a November meeting, Navy officials said they would coordinate with local law enforcement on all training to ensure their awareness. The Seattle Times' Hal Burton reports, go ahead.
As they launched into their full-fledged pandemic legislative session earlier this month, lawmakers in Washington state had no shortage of education issues to sort through. More than 60 bills related to K-12 schools are in the works already, including proposals to maximize the role of school counselors, change truancy policies, and reopen school buildings. Heading into the season, lawmakers and state executives said their priorities will be focusing on supporting student mental health, granting financial flexibility to school districts, and expanding access to internet. If the past years are any indication, the priorities may change significantly once a clearer financial outlook emerges. The main task before legislators is to pass the state's operating budget for the next 2 years. The Seattle Times' Dahlia Bazaz reports.
Grocery store workers in Seattle should soon see an extra $4 an hour for the duration of the coronavirus pandemic. As the Seattle City Council approved legislation Monday requiring large grocers to immediately start offering hazard pay. The legislation introduced just last week passed 8-0 Monday, clearing a requirement that it receive a 3/4 supermajority in order to go into the effect immediately. Mayor Jenny Durkin called the policy a strong step forward in Seattle's recovery. The new requirement applies to grocery companies with more than 500 employees worldwide, to stores larger than 10,000 square feet. It does not apply to convenience stores or farmers markets. The Seattle Times' Dave Gutman reports.
The move to make a new state tax has the backing of Washington State Speaker of the House, Lori Jenkins. The Tacoma Democrats said establishing a capital gains tax targeting the state's top investment earners will help the entire state recover from the COVID-19 pandemic, King 5's Drew Michelson report. Said Jenkins of the matter, quote, "Do people think that our small businesses need help in this economic situation that we're in? Do people think that we want to prevent mass evictions once an eviction moratorium goes away? If your answer is yes, everything's fine. Don't do help for small businesses. Don't worry about evictions. Don't worry about people going hungry. Don't worry about teachers. Then I guess we don't need a capital gains tax." This is the news on Rainier Avenue Radio.world. We return with national news. We'll talk about the ban on trans volunteers in the military and more. Stay tuned.
Welcome back to Rainier Avenue Radio.world. This is the national news. The deadly shootings of unarmed black men and women by police officers in the U.S. has increasingly garnered worldwide attention over the last few years. Per NPR, since 2015, police officers have fatally shot at least 135 unarmed black men and women nationwide. The NPR reviewed police court count other than records to examine the details of the cases. At least 75% of the officers were white. The latest one happened earlier this month in Killeen, Texas, when 52-year-old Patrick Warren Sr. was fatally shot by an officer responding to a mental health call. For at least 15 of the officers, the shootings were not their first or their last. They have been involved in 2, sometimes 3 or more shootings, often deadly without consequences. Among NPR's other findings, at least 6 officers had trouble passed before being hired onto the police departments, including drug use and domestic violence. Several officers were convicted of crimes while on the force, but kept their jobs. More than 24 officers have racked up citizens' complaints or use of force incidents. Several officers have violated the department policies and been cited for ethics violations.
Sarah Huckabee Sanders, a former White House press secretary for President Donald Trump and daughter of 2-term Arkansas governor turned political commentator Mike Huckabee, officially launched her own gubernatorial bid. Per NPR, during her time as press secretary, Sanders was known for her combative media briefings and frequent clashes with the White House press corps. She was tasked with defending Trump's controversial or contradictory statements, often leading to questions about her own credibility. For example, in May 2017, Sanders told reporters that former FBI Director James Comey was fired by Trump after White House officials, quote, heard from countless members of the FBI that rank-and-file members had lost confidence in Comey. However, Special Counsel Robert Mueller's report, released in April 2019, said Sanders' statement was not truthful. She vowed to stand with law enforcement officers, prohibit sanctuary cities, including blocking state funding for cities that, quote, deliberately violate immigration laws, and fight for the working poor. If elected as Arkansas governor, she'll follow in the steps of her father, who served 2 terms from 1996 to 2007.
Vermont Senator Bernie Sanders was one of the most talked about people at President Biden's inauguration, with his bundled up appearance, mittens, and a winter coat made in Vermont naturally. The New York Daily News reports Sanders' photo was turned into a meme that is still circulating on social media. Sanders quickly started selling merchandise, including an already sold out sweatshirt based on the meme, to raise money for Vermont's Meal on Wheels and other charities. The ongoing COVID-19 pandemic has exacerbated food insecurity in the United States, which as many as 30 million people homes have not enough to eat every day, leading to President Biden issuing an executive order on Friday, which included a 15% increase to food stamp benefits, among other things.
President Joe Biden signed an order Monday reversing a Trump-era Pentagon policy that largely barred transgender individuals from serving in the military. It immediately prohibits any Senate member from being forced out of the military on the basis of gender identity. Service member. The order directs the Departments of Defense and Homeland Security to take steps to implement the order for the military and the Coast Guard. And it says they must re-examine the records of service members who were discharged or denied reenlistment due to gender identity issues under the previous policy. It also requires the departments to submit a report to the president on their progress within 60 days, AP reports. The Trump policy triggered a number of lawsuits from transgender individuals who wanted to join the military and found themselves blocked.
San Francisco hotels used to shelter people during the pandemic may fully be funded by federal government this year. Thanks to an executive order signed by President Joe Biden, signed last Thursday. Under the order, certain kinds of emergency housing for the homeless are eligible to be fully reimbursed through September. San Francisco, which has one of the highest homeless populations in the nation, spends 15% to $15 million to $18 million per month to house more than 2,200 and about 25 hotels, according to the San Francisco Chronicle. The city hotel rooms were mentioned in Thursday's executive order, but details as to how its housing program will be funded remain unclear. The department said last year it would reimburse San Francisco's program until the end of the COVID pandemic, but never made clear how it would define the end.
The most COVID-dependent U.S. utilities plan to keep around 75% of their coal-fired power plants running for another decade, according to an analysis by the environmental group Sierra Club released on Monday, posing a threat to the climate. The report reviewed the plans of the 50 largest U.S. utilities companies, reflecting some of the obstacles President Joe Biden will need to overcome to achieve his administration's goal to decarbonize the power sector by 2035, Reuters reports. The analysis found that the companies, which altogether account for 43% of the nation's power production, have committed to retiring just a quarter of their coal capacity by 2030. It also found the companies plan to add new wind and solar capacity over that period, amounting to no less than 1/5 of their current coal and gas generation. This is the news on Rainier Avenue Radio.world. When we come up with global news, you'll hear about rescued miners in China and more. Stay tuned.
Welcome back to Rainier Avenue Radio.world. This is the global news. 11 miners have been rescued in China after a harrowing 2 weeks trapped in some 2,000 feet below ground. Per NPR, the rescue marked a moment of celebration and relief in what has been an arduous and complex effort to bring the men to safety. One miner has already died and another 10 remain missing. The miners became trapped on January 10th following an unexplained explosion at the Hushan gold mine located in the city of Huaxia. I'm probably butchering it, in China's eastern province of Shandong. It was not until 30 hours later that the accident was reported, leading to the firings of at least 2 local officials.
Protesters opposed the coronavirus lockdowns in several Dutch cities, clashed with police over the weekend after new restrictions went into effect. Per NPR, large crowds of people, many not wearing masks, used bicycles to build barricades along city streets and hurling rocks at officers and passing police vans. Shops were broken into and looted. Hoping to slow the spread of COVID-19 variants in the Netherlands, the government imposed new lockdown measures throughout the country. But the rules, such as an 8:30 p.m. curfew and limiting visitors to 1 per household per day, drew the ire of many residents. The Netherlands has also restricted international travel, banning travel abroad until March 31st, and limited flights from UK and several South American countries. Travel from outside the EU has been blocked since March. The city of Urk, east of Amsterdam, police reported that protesters torched a COVID-19 testing center. Health Minister Hugo de Jonge said in a translated tweet that employees of the center are gutted by the destruction.
The bodies of 19 people have been found close to the Mexican border with the U.S. Per BBC News, police found 2 burnt-out vehicles on Saturday, and initial findings indicate the people were shot and then set alight. Violent drug gangs operate in the area, where migrants also try to cross the border into Texas. An official said the victims may be undocumented migrants. The northeastern state, Tamaulipas, is known for violent killings and disappearances, often linked to powerful drug cartels who battle for territory.
As the United Kingdom's COVID-19 death toll approaches 100,000, grief-stricken relatives of the dead expressed anger at Prime Minister Boris Johnson's handling of the worst public health crisis in a century. The United Kingdom's death toll, defined as those who die within 28 days of a positive test, rose to 98,531 on Monday. The toll has risen by an average of over 1,000 per day for the past 7 days. Some scientists and opposition politicians say Prime Minister Boris Johnson acted too slowly to stop the spread of the virus, Reuters reports. Johnson has resisted calls for an inquiry into the handling of the crisis, and ministers say that while they have not got everything right, they were making decisions at speed and have among the best global vaccination programs in the world.
Associated Press reports that Biden administration on Sunday installed new heads of 3 federally international broadcasters after abruptly firing Donald Trump appointees at the U.S. Agency for Global Media. Kilo Chow, CEO of the agency, made the announcement after dismissing the previous directors of Radio Free Europe, Radio Free Asia, and the Middle East Broadcasting Networks last Friday. Chow also announced new corporate board directors for the 3 broadcasters, replacing the board of directors named by Michael Pack just days before his departure. They are Karen Kornblau, ambassador to the Organization for Economic Cooperation and Development under President Barack Obama, Crocker Ryan, who was an ambassador to Iraq, and PR executive Michael Kempner. Kornblau is quoted saying, quote, "Now more than ever, U.S. international media must serve as an accurate, reliable source of news and information in places where illuminating truth is most needed."
Russian President Vladimir Putin condemned weekend protests demanding the release of jailed Kremlin critic Alexei Navalny as dangerous and illegal, and the opposition politicians' allies said they planned a similar protest for Sunday. Police detained more than 3,700 people and used force to break up rallies across Russia on Saturday as tens of thousands of protesters ignored extreme cold and police warnings to demand Navalny be freed from jail, where he is serving out a 30-day stint for alleged parole violations, which he denies. Putin will address the World Economic Forum by video conference on Wednesday, the Kremlin has said. Per Reuters, the appearance is likely to be contentious, with critics at a time when the West is weighing possible new sanctions against Russia over its treatment of Navalny.
Elon Musk is donating $100 million towards a prize for carbon capture technology, according to Bloomberg News. Elon Musk said he'll unveil details of the prize this week. Musk's $100 million is, in many times, the amount being invested into developing carbon capture technology that sometimes space desperately needs. Climate models show that some form of negative emissions technology will be required to meet the goals of the Paris Agreement. And there's a limit to how many forests can be planted naturally to absorb the CO2. Musk isn't the first billionaire to propose a carbon capture prize. Richard Branson launched the Virgin Earth Challenge in 2007, offering $25 million for commercially viable machines that can remove significant amounts of CO2 from the air for at least 10 years. This is the news on Rainier Avenue Radio World. When we come back with sports, we'll talk about the upcoming Super Bowl and more. Stay tuned.
Welcome back to Rainier Avenue Radio World. This is the sports news. After demolishing Buffalo for the AFC title, the Chiefs head to Tampa looking to complete the double. Per Como News, it's been done 8 times, twice by the Steelers. But there's never been such a gap for a repeat winner, and after winning its first Super Bowl in a half-century last year, Kansas City seems primed to end that string of failures. Except for that massive roadblock named Tom Brady. The quarterback of the Patriots, when they took the Lombardi Trophy for the 2003 and 2004 seasons, Brady owns a non-pareil 6 rings altogether. He's headed to his 10th Super Bowl, and the big game will be played at Raymond James Stadium, which happens to be the Buccaneers' home field. Add another record to Brady's ledger. The Chiefs are well aware of what Brady means in a championship chase. For those 2 decades when New England was dominating the AFC, Kansas City enviously watched. What the Chiefs witnessed then is what is playing out now. Brady as the centerpiece, and by far the most important piece of a franchise.
It took the Kansas City Chiefs 5 decades to make their third Super Bowl appearance. Como News says now the defending champs are headed there for the second straight year. Showing no lingering effects from his concussion, Patrick Mahomes sliced up Buffalo's secondary with ruthless efficiency Sunday night, helping the Chiefs roll to a 38-24 victory over Josh Allen and the Bills in the AFC Championship game. The reigning Super Bowl MVP finished with 325 yards passing and 3 touchdowns, most of it to the favorite targets, Travis Kelce, Tyreek Hill, who complemented their star quarterback with record-setting night of their own. The Chiefs will face a familiar foe, Tom Brady, and the NFC Buccaneers in 2 weeks in Tampa, Florida. I'm proud of these guys, quoted, said Reed, the coach, who moved into a tie with Joe Gibbs for the 4th on the career list with his 17th playoff win.
The Washington Wizards are finally back, but the Memphis Grizzlies aren't ready yet. Washington played at San Antonio on Sunday night, the Wizards' first game in 13 days after seeing 6 players test positive for COVID-19 and 3 others having to miss several days following contact tracing. The Grizzlies won't play until at least Saturday after the NBA called off yet another game, the 21st postponement this season. Memphis was scheduled to play Sunday and Monday at home against Sacramento, AP's Tim Reynolds reports. Those were called off late last week, and now the Grizzlies' home game against Chicago that was scheduled for Wednesday is off as well.
As his adopted hometown mourned Hank Aaron's death, some fans called on the Atlanta Braves to change their name to the Hammers in his honor. Hammer and Hank Aaron died Friday at the age of 86, drawing praise from all segments of society, including the current and former presidents, for his Hall of Fame career and providing inspiration to Black Americans by overcoming intense racism and his pursuit of baseball's home run record. The governors of both Georgia and Alabama ordered flags to be flown at half-staff in honor of Aaron. AP's Paul Newberry reports. The NFL's Atlanta Falcons, MLS, Atlanta's United, and Georgia Tech's football team all announced they will retire Aaron's trademark number 44 for their 2021 seasons. The number was long ago retired by the Braves.
Pac-12 Commissioner Larry Scott is stepping down at the end of June, ending an 11-year tenure in which the conference landed a transformational billion-dollar television deal, but struggled to keep up with some of its Power 5 peers when it came down to revenue and exposure. Sports Business Journal first reported the news Wednesday night, and a person with knowledge of what was being called a mutual decision between the 56-year-old Scott and university presidents who make up the league's executive committee confirmed it to the AP. Scott's current contract is set to expire in June 2022, but he will not seek a new deal and instead finish out his academic to assist with the transition to his successor, Ralph D. Russo of the AP reports.
The Associated Press reports Jessica Korda trailing by 3 shots headed to the back 9 at Four Seasons Golf and Sports Club Orlando on Sunday. She first caught Danielle Kane with a late 4-birdie burst to a 5-under par 66, then won with a curling 30-footer for birdie on the first playoff hole. Kane shot a 68. The leadership after each of the first rounds, she had a chance to extend the playoff, but missed her 18-foot birdie putt on the last side of the 185-yard 18th hole. It was the 6th LPGA Tour victory for the 27-year-old Korda. Her last one coming 3 years ago. She earned $180,000. Korda and Kane finished at 24 under 260 to beat the previous tournament records by 10 shots.
This has been the news on Rainier Avenue Radio World. Thanks for watching. Monday Night Sports with Dupe and Edwin is next, and we'll see you on Wednesday.
Everybody stay safe.